Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast. I'm Dr. Claire Moon, and we're going to be talking about February of 2025, and in particular, the astrology of February 2025. So, if you are joining me again, welcome back. If you're joining me for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. And you can look over to the right-hand side of your screen, and there should be a little chat box over there. You can if there are other people here, you can interact with the other astrology lovers. If you have any questions for me, you can throw them in the chat. And if you have anything you want to share personally, that's cool. I might not comment on it, but it's just a space to put whatever. If you have any desire to keep following me, subscribe, of course, hit the like button, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. I have a newsletter. You can follow me on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. And that's where you can book me as well. So if you enjoy how I'm talking about things today, how I'm discussing the skies and how it might affect us, you can always book a one-on-one session with me on my website as well. I usually have a discount code going on, so definitely sign up for a newsletter. That's how you get the discount codes usually. Um, and every single month, you think that I would start to write it down on a post-it note or something, but I never do. And we do this, it's like if there was a Claire bingo board, it would be one of the squares would be forget zone discount code. But if I remember it, I'll say that later. Um, I don't think I have any other announcements. Usually below, I've got a bunch of notes. I've got links to resources. I've got highlighted charities that I'm into. You can explore all kinds of links and stuff below if you're interested in more. Uh, Hello, Clark. Hello, Fran. Welcome. We have people from abroad. It's nice to see you. And we're going to talk a little bit, I guess, before we get into February, we should talk a little bit about January. So let me get the wheel up here and let me get my notes going. Yeah, I don't think I have any more announcements. Yeah, no relevant workshops. I've got a Jupiter and Gemini workshop. It is specifically it hones really in on the square with Saturn, but there's a ton of information about Jupiter and Gemini. I have a whole workshop for that for sale. There's a link to that below as well. At least there should be. Uh, but anyway, let's start talking about the sky. Let's start talking about what's going on right now, which I wanted to alert everyone that as I record this on the 29th of January, we have a Sun Jupiter trine, which is usually a pretty nice time in a vacuum. There's other stuff going on right now in the skies, but this is one part of that soup that is a nice note, a nice little element. So Jupiter is a planet of goodwill, friendship, reconciliation, forgiveness, good times. And the sun is usually representing each of us. Um, Sometimes the powers that be, so maybe they're having a good time today, uh, depending on who they are. I say that so derogatorily in tone. But, if you just think of the sun as the self, having a nice interaction with a planet that has to do with nice interactions, it's a nice little sweet spot. So if you do have peopling to do today, and you want to throw out olive branches, or, if you've got a conversation to have where you want it to turn out somewhat well. Now we've got a few really important key planets, Moon, Mercury, away from Pluto. They're done with all of that stuff that we've been going through with Pluto, some intensity, some big Plutonian things, which I maybe I should stop and talk about that, for a second. But for our personal purposes today, on the 29th of January, on the 30th of January, now is a time to maybe have more chill conversations, chill interactions, or just a sense of some kind of relaxation that we haven't had for a good 2 weeks. So enjoy it. It's a nice little note. Other old business, we've got Venus in Pisces. So this is old business because this has been going on. Venus has been in Pisces since what was it, the 2nd of January. Yeah, that's when Venus entered Pisces. And this is noteworthy because given that Venus is going to do a retrograde pretty soon on March 1st, Venus is really going to be in these two signs, Pisces and Aries, for the first 6 months of the year. For, yeah, January through June 5th is when Venus finally gets into Taurus. And I actually made rising sign horoscopes about this broader theme of Venus being in these two places, eventually doing a whole retrograde dance and journey. So you can check that out. I actually don't have that linked below. I think I forgot to put that in there, but you can explore on my website. I do have rising sign horoscopes out for Venus being in these two places. So check that out. That is another piece of old business. I just want to note that we have really entered into these Venus stories. And especially at this point, um, let me double check myself before I wreck myself. I think Venus is in their retrograde. No, they're not. No, yeah, they are. Venus is in their retrograde, pre-retrograde time, starting now. So really all of February is going to be the lead up to the Venus retrograde. But really starting today, start watching the Pisces places in your chart because that might give you some clues about what stories are going to be unfolding over the next half a year. I talk all about it in the rising sign horoscope that I just posted on my, my YouTube channel not that long ago, a couple days ago. Last piece of old business. The nodes shifted. So now, depending on, doesn't matter whether you use the mean calculation or the true lunar node calculation, uh, all of it's in Pisces now. So we've got the lunar nodes, the north node, Rahu, the south node, Ketu. We've got the dragon head and the dragon tail, and they have gotten out of Aries and Libra, and they are now in Virgo and Pisces. Now, we do have one little caveat to that. March does have an Aries eclipse. So we're not totally done with Aries in terms of what can be more unstable but rebalancing type of energy. Just a lot of increase in activity the last year and a half in Aries. Uh, that is going to be calming down for the most part now that the nodes are moving out of this place. That being said, one caveat, March. One more little loose end wrap up there. So if you have especially late Pisces planets, you might be noticing the head of the dragon. If you have late Virgo planets, you might be noticing the tail of the dragon. This is also something that I recently talked about. I really got into the lunar nodes in my last Q&A, my last office hour. I don't think I have that linked below right now, but I will after I get done with this. So check that out also on my YouTube channel. There's a whole section, it's time stamped, so you can skip right to it. And I break down, I'm really talking about the lunar nodes in terms of a natal chart and how I might interpret them in a natal chart. That being said, it's all the same stuff, except with transits, you interpret them that way, but a lot of the same principles still apply. So if you want to know more about the nodes and the lunar nodes and know more about how they might be affecting this area of your chart as they move through there over the next year and a half, go check out my last office hour and I get more into that there. So some other resources to delve into things a little more deeply, but those are the biggest changes I've been noticing is just Venus's story kicking off, the nodes getting into a new place, and just right now having a nice little moment. We're also, I think we're in a benefic. Are we in a benefic lunar enclosure? Let me look at last month. Yeah, we are. So when the moon is between 11 degrees of Aquarius and 11 degrees of Pisces, which right now the moon is at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So we're in a lunar benefic enclosure. The moon is between the comforting rays of Jupiter and Venus. So nice little patch of weather today. Uh, Enjoy it. It's into tomorrow, into the 30th. Let me see if anyone's got any questions or comments. Hello, I'm seeing some familiar faces. Welcome back. Oh, someone's wondering how do the lunar nodes being opposite from where they were when you were born. So you're in your lunar opposition, which is the opposite of your lunar return. Lunar nodal return, I should say. Nodal return, not lunar. Yeah, let's talk about it for a second. Because usually, so let's say someone has their south node in Pisces and their north node in Virgo. This is where you especially go back and watch my office hour because this will help you understand. But we can think of, I'm just going to go with the very simple Hellenistic idea of the lunar nodes, the south node being a point of decrease or lessening, and the north node being a point of increase or more. And so natally, if someone has that point of decrease in, or sorry, that point of increase in Virgo, north node in Virgo natally, south node in Pisces natally, that that is giving a bit of a directionality in the whole life of that person toward more Virgo topics in general. You're getting pulled into a more Virgo direction, or the way that you were going about those parts of your life are getting pulled increasingly in a more Virgo direction, and or the Vedic type of way of looking at the nodes, which is how I prefer to look at them, which is the North Node is not my favorite. I think they're an agent of confusion and they are very frenzied in nature, sometimes very more in a grasping, intense, tense, not peaceful kind of way. So the Virgo part of your chart might usually be, more of that. Yeah, there's a lot here to deal with and then a lot to wrangle. And it might be unwieldy because it's kind of confusing and you got to figure it out. And there's a lot of it. So good luck. That's usually the deal if that's in your birth chart. But for a limited time only, for a year and a half, you've got the opposite situation where now the place where there's usually a decreasing sort of vibe in Pisces, now there's going to be an increase of that. And where there's usually more of an increasing kind of or increasing focus or tension or pull to the area of Virgo, now maybe there's, or a kind of collecting or increasing that Rahu likes to do. Now there's a lessening increase with the South Node being in Virgo by transit. And so it's going to be switching things up a bit temporarily, where in places where you're used to maybe focusing more, maybe there's a letting go, a cutting down, a pruning of the bushes, not a total like not doing it or, telling it to F off for a year and a half, but much more of a kind of pruning the garden and, getting rid of your old clothes that you don't wear anymore, stuff like that, if it's like in your second house. Versus the increase in Pisces, maybe you're not used to, dealing with that area being confusing. Maybe it's usually a bit easier for you or not materially focused. It's more spiritual. Well, now it is going to be maybe more confusing, more materially focused in that Pisces area of your life. And there's going to be more of a focus there in general than you might be used to having. So that's going to be a little different than maybe what a modern astrologer might have a take on that, but that's my take on that. So, it's a year and a half. See if you got any planets or points in there, and it'll be strongest when the nodes are right on top of that. And that'll be a whole other, there's actually a lot there to unpack. If you've got planets or points where the nodes are transiting, it's then going to start to indirectly affect other areas of your chart. That's where you need to talk to a professional. So good luck with that. Great question. So that's a little preview. If you want to come to my office hours, if anyone's listening to this, that's the kind of stuff that we like to do, is just like whatever questions come in and then we riff on them for a while and then move on to the next thing. So very good. Thank you for that. Let's see. Is there anything else in the chat? Thank you, Clark. Uh, yeah, 180 degrees would be halfway around. 90 degrees would be like a half nodal return. Someone's saying something about a half nodal return. That sounds like 90 degrees to me, but I don't know. Anywho, good luck. And oh yeah, wasn't it just the Lunar New Year? Isn't that today? Happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating. I know there's like a ton of people in the world traveling this month and next. So safe travels to everyone who's doing that. And I think we're going to go into the future now. I think let's talk about our datey dates for February. Um, there they are. On the 4th of February, we've got Venus entering Aries. We also have Jupiter stationing direct on the 4th. On the 12th of February, Leo full moon. On the 14th, Mercury is entering Pisces. On the 18th, Sun is entering Pisces. On the 23rd, Mars is stationing direct. On the 23rd, Saturn is going to start disappearing from the evening sky. On the 27th, Pisces, they're going to have a Pisces new moon. And on the 28th, Mercury is approximately, depending on things, going to start rising in the evening sky. So those are our big events for the month of February. There are big events in February. There are so many things I've been waiting for, namely Jupiter and Mars stationing direct. I think the big thing to note, though, we need to remember that when planets station direct, they're still really slow. And that speed matters. That tells us how the affairs of that planet, how those affairs are moving along. And if the planet is moving along at a slow speed, then likewise those affairs are going to move along at a slower speed. Um, so even like on the 23rd, when Mars stations direct, it's still going to take many, many weeks for them to speed up. So don't expect that, on the 23rd, everything is going to come sunny side up or right itself or, resolve, especially in regards to like the Aries or Scorpio parts of your chart. And likewise, when Jupiter stations direct in a few days on the 4th of February, we might need some time for Jupiter to get going in the forward direction. So very excited, but we still have to maintain patience. Cool. That's my big caveat with that. And then there's okay, so those are my main dates for February. There are some smaller, not smaller, wider dates that I also want to give. And did I put these below? I want to say, man, I really dropped the ball on adding any of my stuff I usually do beforehand. Apologies. It'll all be up there afterwards. But uh, there's these three-part stories. Venus is going to be having with Saturn, Neptune, and North Node. So that there are these three-part dates that I'm going to give people. And then there's also been these three-part stories that Mars has been having with Neptune and Pluto. For February, there's nothing really happening there with Mars and the outers, but for Venus, there are. So those dates of interest, these three-part stories, it already has started for Venus and Saturn. So we just had our first one. This is kind of old business, I guess, but Venus met Saturn on the 18th of January. Venus being a planet of relationship, love, beauty, values, meeting a planet of delays, slowness, limitations. So limitations or slowness in relationship, obstacles in relationship, long-term challenges in relationship, maybe that you're already in or that you see before you in the future. So one of the analogies I've been using is, if you're climbing a mountain with someone, make sure you want to climb a mountain with that person because it's a lot of work and you don't want to be carrying someone else's weight, that is not that's not yours to carry. So Venus usually in Pisces is so romantic and like optimistic and dreamy and like if we can dream it, we can do it. But Saturn being there says, here are the actual real facts. Here are the actual, uh, potential delays, limitations. So know what you're committing to. It's a planet of commitment. All of that kind of can be like a temporary heaviness, lack of faith, doubt around relationships, art, beauty. If you got art projects that you're struggling with, that you're like, wow, I don't know if I can pull this off. Hang in there. It's a three-parter, and that three-parter started mid-January. That's not going to be again until April. But now another one that is starting. is Venus Neptune. So first we had this big dose of reality of what commitments are you doing? What's serious with the relationship? And then Venus is going to have a whole different tone when they meet Neptune, which is a planet of, you know, similar to Pisces in some ways. What is the ideal version that I can imagine, that I can dream of? That is still like right here. It's like it's almost within grasp. But we got, someone in the back seat, like literally being a backseat driver, being like, hey, you know, slow down, bucko. This whole time. The first run-in that Venus has with Neptune is on the first. So if we are feeling extra dreamy, extra romantic, yeah, lean into it. If you have artistic, spiritual things to do as February opens up, perfect. Use it for that. If you have to do really delicate, detail-oriented things with relationships or art or, anything like that, Neptune kind of muddies things. It's like I'm trying to put rhinestones on something and then I spill glue everywhere. That's that's like Neptune gumming up the works when we're thinking about trying to have material world discernment and precision and things like that, Virgo things. Venus has a hard time doing that with Neptune around. So in some ways there, Neptune is very helpful artistically, spiritually, connecting with people, but materially it can be a little bit more difficult. So over communicate as we move into February in your relationships. If there's a chance for confusion or uncertainty, make sure to over communicate because that is what the weather looks like. It looks like it's like chance of rainy. It's not chance of rainy, it's chance of like fog. It's chance of confusion at the beginning of February. So do your best to navigate that. Go slow if you must with relationships, with art projects. And then that's going to come in again at the end of March, March 27th, and then May 2nd. So for the people who are here, I'm just going to can I just copy paste into the chat? No, it looks like trash. I'll do it later. And then, okay, so February 1st, March 27th, May 2nd, Venus Neptune conjunctions, and then dovetailed right along with that, the Venus Rahu conjunctions. They're happening like right pretty much at the same time. It's all like a little cluster here. So that is also on the 1st of February. And then Venus Rahu again, because Rahu will move a little bit, the 1st of April, and then the 23rd of April. So we see about the same timing. So in general, put a note like, so for me, I'm going to put a note in my calendar about now. So end of January into February, end of March into April, and then end of April into May. I'm going to put a note in my calendar that says, over communicate, beware of confusion, beware of expectations, because Neptune loves making expectations. Ooh, I expect it to be amazing. I expect it to be the worst, or they to be the best or the worst. So make a note in your calendar to be aware of the amount of that, the amount of stories that are happening on top of what's actually happening. So, if I'm feeling sick, that already sucks. But then if I'm thinking, oh, and this is probably going to last forever and ruin my whole life, that's a whole extra story that doesn't need to be there, that's creating more suffering. That's the kind of stuff that Neptune does. That's the kind of stuff that Saturn with Neptune and Rahu does. So, and also if there's like a overindulgence during these times or overdoing it with yum yums, luxury, any kind of Pisces, Venus thing. Yeah, just be careful around those things during these times as well. Don't want any of us slipping in any puddles or anything or getting puddled. Be careful with imbibing of anything during these times, early February, late March into April, and then late April into May. Be careful about what you're taking into your body as well. Double check it. Read the label twice. Okay. That I think is all of my super bigger lists of dates. Thank you so much for everyone for hanging in there through those details. Now let's get into more details. Let's get into the first of the month. Uh, Now we've gotten through at this point, Mercury and Sun have both made it past this intensity with Pluto, at least in the United States. You know, this is, I'm sure, been coming out in different ways in different areas of the world. But what I've been noticing is a lot of the Pluto weather has been seeing a new presidential administration come into power, the power grabbing that is happening, the power plays, the power differentials, and just the sheer intensity of then the sun itself being a point of power. The sun, before we had Pluto being power or this like really intense focal point, it was the sun a lot, you know, the leader, the king, whatever, all of that coming together with Pluto. So it was pretty disturbing to see that. That's been going on here. Now, the biggest, loudest gong hit has happened, and we're hearing the deep reverberations of that. And we will continue as these planets move along in Aquarius. But that's the big brunt of the gong hit is over there. In this first bit of Aquarius, Mercury has their own bound. They're in their own bound. So right now, as I record this, and I forgot to mention this last month, really like the 28th through the 1st of February. So right now and for the next couple days, we've got Mercury in their own bound, which in general, Mercury's not in the best shape. They're really close to the sun, which is tough. They like to be in an air sign, but you know, some other planets around them have been difficult. This is a nice little respite for Mercury. So doing mercurial things today, tomorrow, the next day, sending your letters, writing, thinking, planning, organizing, gymnastics, righteous thievery, travel, anything mercurial, anything that requires dexterity, using your hands, crafts. I already said gymnastics, dance. Sometimes Venus is dance. I think Mercury's also dance. Tricks. It's a good time. Mercury stuff. Okay, and then on the first, they're going to leave their bound. They're going to lose protection from the beams of the sun. They're not going to be in their chariot anymore if you consider a planet being in their bound having chariot. And, you know, it's going to be tough for them. It's only getting tougher. So it's like, yeah, now is a good time to do Mercury stuff. It kind of just keeps getting tougher. Um, there is one exception to that where when Mercury is in Pisces, they will have a mutual reception with Jupiter in Gemini, which will help. But yeah, it's, you know, for the next 2 months, I would say, in general, Mercury retrograde protocols are good to do. You know, like, again, not overscheduling yourself, taking your time with things, showing up early, leaving early for things, you know, being careful about words, ideas, thoughts, all that Mercury stuff. Double checking it, not being hard on yourself if there's a typo. Yeah, that's real. Um, Now, there is a little respite on the 9th of February when Mercury is going to be in Cazimi with the sun. They'll be in the heart of the sun and they're going to get a little bit of a break from all of this. So that's your other kind of time to maybe send a letter or have a realization and write it down, get some writing done. Might be more like the 8th, 9th, 10th of February. Those are other days where, at least Hellenistically, Mercury is within 1 degree of the sun, and they get a little bit of a break from the difficulty of their relative position. And then on the 1st of February, so that's all I have to say about Mercury for now. 1st of February, they're out of their bounds. On the 1st of February, we're also going to have Venus in, what is it? Coming into a sextile with Pluto that they will eventually perfect on the 7th of February. So, you know, dating a little slightly, it looks fun. But be on notice, I guess, like first week of February, if it feels extra fun and spicy and exciting, and like, oh my God, who is this person, this magical person? Yes, but it's a dopamine casino. It looks dopamine-ish, heavy. It looks like it could be intense. So just, don't let that carry you away too much. Have fun with it. And then if you have more, heavier relational things to work through, let's say there has been, more on a serious note, if you've had past relational difficulties or trauma, any kind of peopling that is difficult for you, or there's a pattern around that. Sometimes when a planet is in like a sextile or a trine with Pluto, those are the times when I think the wind is, or at least not running against the wind. We're getting a little bit of help where it's at least not as hard as it usually might be to work with those patterns in this case in terms of relational stuff or ideas around beauty or aesthetic or things that you like or don't like or vices, addictive challenges with addictions. First week of February, Venus might be in a decent place to be working on those things or thinking about them or approaching them in a way that might be constructive or helpful. So, not a huge kind of a story here with Venus and Pluto, but yeah, I like to take advantage of those sextiles and trines with Pluto. They don't happen that often. And then first couple days of February, we're going to also have the moon in a mutual reception with Mars. These have been really energetic days. So the second, I guess depending on your time zone, really later on the day in the first of February, moon gets into Aries. And then they're going to be in there for 2.5 days. So the first, the second, the third of February, the moon is going to be exchanging signs with Mars. And these days might be very energetic. So lots of action happening. Again, maybe good days to work with patterns, breakthroughs with that, starting new things. We've got a waxing moon in a cardinal place. This could be beginning a new thing around habits. I've noticed like I've gotten together with people on days where the moon is exchanging signs with Mars like this. And every time it's like, it's not a chill time. It's like there's a party, there's a football game on, there's people yelling, it's like busy. So letting yourself be busy these few days. But the moon here has the overcoming position. So I don't think it's going to be such that we are, you know, not taking care of ourselves. Then one thing to note, the third, so this Chiron business, the moon is going to be plugging in with that. So if you're running into the first days of February, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say like the 2nd of February, the 3rd of February. If you are running into any tender discussions with people, sensitive discussions, or sensitive things with yourself too, like maybe ouchy or tender things inside of yourself, yeah, sometimes Chiron will bring that up. So the moon is going to be with Chiron. And what's more is that Mars is going to be coming into their exact square. And this is the second of a three-part story as well, one that began in October. So October 13th was the first square with Chiron. So this is where our homework assignment, we can all be super sleuths and go back to our calendars and our diaries and see what was going on. Then now is going to be the second square. And then the final one is on March 26th. And we're just going to be feeling into this one very much with the moon right there on the 2nd of February, 3rd of February. So, if you're dealing with anything difficult relationally, just be extra careful or, around the speed of things. If there's adrenaline involved, 2nd, 3rd of February, if there's a lot of anger or resentment or just pointiness, sharpness, you know, taking time out, taking time to yourself to calm down, or having whatever kind of tools you need to support yourself and each other, if there is anything like that. I almost want to call it a mind your own business day, but sometimes you can't always do that. But it could be. And then Venus is going to enter Aries on the 4th, get right into that sextile with Pluto. Now, one thing to note is that while Venus is in Pisces, Libra and Taurus benefit from that. When Venus is in really supported shape, in good condition, they are able to run the affairs of the places they're in charge of a little better. Now, when Venus gets into Aries on the 4th of February, Taurus and Libra likewise will not be as well supported. So I would say, last call when it comes to the Taurus and Libra areas of your chart. So for me, that's my fourth house of home, my ninth house of astrology. I'm gonna try to like get one last push. Like maybe I'll clean the floors the next few days. Do some nice fourth and ninth house things while I have the support and while Venus is in nice shape for me, because I know that they might be feeling a bit more frazzled or rushed or busy when they're in Aries. And that's going to be more of February and March. Now the pace picks up. Things are going faster. There's just more to do. There's more relationships to have, more people to talk to, and the pace of it all is a little quicker than Venus would usually like. So last call on Venus stuff, the first few days of February. Venus will be back in Pisces April 30th to June. So they'll be back, but for the next couple months, we're going to have Aries Venus, Warrior Queen Venus. Uh, that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to be talking about Venus and Aries a lot over the next couple months. So maybe we'll start here. Because I didn't do my meditative moment. Let's stop and do a little meditation thing. And I did this for my Venus content, but I'm going to do it again here because I like it and I thought it was neat. Um, yeah, because when we go future tripping and we think about all the things that the future could be, we're not here right now in this moment. And when we're not here right now in this moment, and when we are future tripping, it's way easier to go into anxiety mode. That's just how brains work. So I've been doing recently more of these like little meditative moments to try to kind of bring things back down to earth a bit. So Venus and Pisces, I did a water one. I did a little bit of like, cartomancy with the deck, a meditation-y deck. And this one is called Offering Love and Compassion. So I'm going to read through these, maybe not as slow as I should, but when Venus is in Pisces, this was some of the advice the deck recommended. And it's a bunch of wishes for wellness in the world. Basically, it's like the Piscean image of the best way that relating Venus could be. If we all operated under the auspices of Jupiter, if we were all generous, if we were all compassionate and understanding, things would just work. Uh, so in that, offering love and compassion, may suffering arising from hatred and fear be remedied. May those in the grip of insecurity be released to the safety of understanding. May those lost in confusion find relief and wisdom. May the wounds to the earth be healed through our right action. May we bring an end to war, consumerism, economic disparity, racism, and sexual violence. May those in refugee camps and prisons find their way home. May those without shelter find a safe harbor and community. May those suffering from grief and the ravages of sickness find peace. May those who care for the sick find support as they serve others. May those who have died be liberated from confusion. May all awaken and awaken others. So that's our Venus and Pisces advice, is to lean into all of those well wishes for everyone, and including ourselves. And then on the 4th, Venus is going to go into Aries. And this is a fiery card that I drew. So this one's called Cultivating Compassion, and it gives us a helpful acronym called GRACE, Grace. So when relationships are going too fast, when our values are being challenged, when it's like, I think this is important and this is how fairness and justice should go. And some other people are like, what? We can pull up on this. Gather your attention on an inhalation. So focus on your breath. On the exhalation, drop into your body. Recall your intention to end your own suffering and the suffering of others. Attune first to yourself, your body, heart, and mind, and attune to another, body, heart, and mind. Consider what will serve by pausing and reflecting. Engage from a base of equanimity and care, and end the interaction by acknowledging internally or interpersonally what has transpired. So gathering the attention on the breath, recalling the intention to end ours and others' suffering, attuning to yourself, attuning to the other, considering what will serve by pausing and reflecting, engaging from a place of mental balance and care, and ending in interaction by acknowledging what has happened. Like very solid advice. Because that's usually the trouble with relating under the auspices of Fire Mars is that things go too fast. It's very instinctual. It's really good in a crisis. You know, sometimes we need to go fast. Sometimes we don't have time to draw up a contract. But yeah, that's also that makes harmony difficult. That makes fairness difficult. So hang in there, everyone, especially if you're a Libra, Taurus rising. The first part of 2025 is going to be very interesting, but then, it's like think of it as like a refining or a polishing process for Venus and for our relationships, a refining and a polishing process for our art, our art projects, or any kind of connecting that we're doing. And also, okay, changing gears to Jupiter. We're going to have them stationing direct. So whatever Venus is up to, they're still going to have the helping hand of Jupiter. They are, I mean, at least they're seen by Mars. It is helpful to be seen by the Lord of the place you're in. And Jupiter stationing direct is really going to help out the Pisces and Sagittarius places of our chart. So for me, I'm an Aquarius rising, so this is my second and 11th houses. If you are a Capricorn rising, that's your 12th and your third houses. All of those life topics since October have been slowed down, stopped, delayed, going in other directions, and potentially scattered. Now they're going to move forward a bit more progressively in a direct fashion with a bit more success than we've been having since October of 2024. So I'm looking forward to it because part of that's my career. My midheaven is in Sagittarius. So my career is Jupiter ruled. My money is Jupiter ruled. So I mean, Jupiter moving forward, Jupiter, all of that, and my spending as well. I might be moving forward on spending. So who knows? But just knowing that the vibe shift of Jupiter stationing direct is going to affect more than just Gemini. It's going to be affecting these other places in your chart. And then again, like I said, just saying the same thing I just said earlier, giving it time. Just because February 4th happens and Jupiter stations direct, it's going to take them time to speed up and get going. And they still got some steps to retrace along the way. But, as we get into like March, then they will have added a lot of speed. So that's going on. Also, when a planet is stationing, Jupiter might also just be very loud. And so when Jupiter is loud, what is loud, I mean, here it is reconciliation, knowledge, understanding, so maybe you're learning something or something's really clicking that you've been trying to learn. Um, Maybe just in life or in your personal life, there's a general understanding of something. Uh, Jupiter is bringing things together. It's a coalescing. It's a drawing things together into a way that makes sense, that is coherent. It's not just throwing everything into the same box, but it's like doing it in a way that is organized and makes sense. And so Jupiter is going to be doing that much more loudly this first week of February. So maybe me as I'm trying to put my research together and come to some concluding thought. Like, what is the meaning of all of this data that I've collected and now is sitting in a file? Uh, maybe I should plan to do that work around this time. With Jupiter being loud, maybe I'll understand something. Uh, it is friendship. Jupiter is our hopes, our dreams. So maybe our hopes are going to be really loud. We're like yearning and hoping for stuff. Well, yearning is more Venus, but Jupiter is hoping for stuff. Maybe our faith is going to be loud. Maybe we just have a big sense of optimism for some reason around the first week of February. But Jupiter things will be loud. If you need Jupiter's help in stabilizing forgiveness, reconciliation, goodwill between people, that's another thing. I know I had just mentioned how Mars is square Chiron, Venus is sextile Pluto. So those things could be relationally challenging. At the same time, Jupiter is a strong presence in the sky right now. So maybe that speaks to things not being totally, you know, hopeless or, not reconcilable. All right. That's what I say about Jupiter. I think, where are they? They are in their own bound right now. So Jupiter's actually doing pretty good, relatively speaking. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be in some nice territory and bounds for a while. Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. Now, moving to the 6th, we have a lunar benefic enclosure that's starting, depending on your time zone. The moon is going to be between the rays of Jupiter and Venus, and so the moon is just going to be more supported, stabilized. So our general experience on February 6th and 7th should be a bit more favorable, stabilized, positive. And that is when the moon is in between 1 degree, 28 minutes, and 11 degrees, 17 minutes of Gemini. So between the first degree of Gemini or second degree and 17th, uh, that's going to range in time. So Central Time, 3 in the morning approximately to 8 p.m. on the 6th. On the 7th, that is going to be pretty much all morning. And then it ends, like if you're in Japan time or Eastern Australian time, that's ending at 1:16 p.m. on the 7th, the nice weather patch. So 6th and most of the 7th, depending on where you are. Then on the 7th, we get that Venus Pluto sextile perfecting. So that's that little intense note with relationships, art, beauty, matters of aesthetic. There's also a transformation agent here. So this could be like very well, could be like doing something really important with your style, your wardrobe, your hair, something that's really powerful or transformative and really stands out and is really like provocative. That would be so like, if I would have like it would be a good day to do something like this. Get a side shave. Uh, all right, then on the 8th, now Hellenistically speaking, within a degree, on the 8th of February, Mercury is going to be within 1 degree of the sun. So now when a planet enters the heart of the sun, it's like they go from the situation of being very harmed by the rays of the sun. It's like very hot and they're invisible in the sky. We can't see them. They were said to be less effective, that planet, at doing its things when they're under the beams of the sun. But within 1 degree, that's a loophole, and we get saved from that type of fate. So for at least a couple days here, it is going to be less of an issue. So again, if you have mercurial things to do, traveling, communicating, writing, buying, selling, oh, that's something I forgot earlier. Buying, selling, trading, traveling, anything with your hands, crafts, dexterity, gymnastics, tricks, thievery, only righteous thievery. All of those are good Mercury things to do. And that is going to be perfecting on the 9th and it's Central Time in the morning at 6:08 in the morning. That's 12:08 p.m. Universal Time on the 9th. 5:38 p.m. India Standard Time on the 9th, Mercury Cazimi, and 9:08 p.m. East Australia, Japan time. So really stretches depending on time zone all through the 9th. This is a time of all realization as well. So if you have insights just privately in your own mind, understandings, insights, realizations, information coming in that you needed, that all is very like Mercury in the heart of the sun. If you feel like you have a moment of expression on the 8th, 9th, even into the 10th of February, a moment of clear expression, clear communication, clear sharing of some kind, that would be a Mercury in the heart of the sun thing because it's like the sun, the soul, the being is speaking. And there's a clear channel through the voice from that person or through the brain into that person. um, it's a planet of logic and rationale. So there can be these clear moments having to do with what is rational, logical, reasonable. So if you're trying to problem solve, hopefully on the 8th, 9th, 10th, there'll be some help there. There's a lot of Uranus weather happening around here too. So that also is just going to add like the sun is about to square Uranus. So there's a lot of potential for wanting to be expressive, to do things in your own unique way. Uranus also adds more to that idea of sudden insight, breakthrough, innovation. So if you are having any good realizations or again, just insights coming in on the 8th, 9th, 10th of February, write them down. Take note. They might be really important, or it could be like a breakthrough with problem solving. Now, sometimes when we get Sun square Uranus, Uranus is the wanting to do things differently, being unique and independent. The Sun is here in a square relationship to it. So there's something not easeful about this expression, though. There's some tension here, or like if there is any difficulty in in sharing, expressing, speaking, communicating, those types of mercurial things. Yeah, it could be pretty crunchy. So make sure that you have healthy outlets for whatever is wanting to come out on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'm hoping for some breakthroughs always. I'm always hoping for those. Those are nice insights. Never don't want those. Yeah, and Mercury is squaring Uranus. So Sun and Mercury both. They're gonna walk through this square with Uranus. And so this is like the classic like changes if it is for the better, but those changes, even if they're for the better, are very disruptive. Or even, the square itself, it is this kind of change kind of vibe, having to move around the circle. By the time you get to this square, you really have to have changed a lot of degrees of directionality. Otherwise, you're just going to go flying off on a tangent. So you really have to make these pivots every 90 degrees. It is this moment of tension. So if there are breakthroughs or insights, it's not necessarily going to be easy to implement them, and that can sometimes cause some frustration. So again, some healthy outlets for whatever wants to come out on those days, the 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th. It looks like there is a lunar benefic enclosure also that picks up too, right after that. Before I speak to that, though, I should mention, so when Mercury moves through the sun direct, That is halfway through Mercury's story. When Mercury is retrograde, that's when they move through the sun. That's their rebirth. So the last time that happened, I thought I wrote this down, but I did not. Mercury conjunct the sun. So this cycle started on December 5th. We had a Mercury Cazimi at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. I actually know what this was about for me personally. I remember what was going on. I was having to reconsider an old relationship. I'd heard some new information about an old person and had to do some rethinking. That was the beginning of a Mercury cycle there. And then now we're at the halfway point. So if there are similar types of themes or plot lines coming around that were present mid-November, that could be a possibility here. So just that was the other thing I wanted to mention with the Mercury cycle. This is the midpoint. Yeah, then there's a lunar benefic enclosure for 12 hours when the moon is in Leo. Oh, okay. When the moon is in Cancer with Mars, um, mm, could be a mind your own business day on the 9th. Maybe we'll have all those realizations in private, hopefully, and it won't be anything funky. But yeah, when the moon has been with Mars here, these have been kind of they haven't been the nicest, smoothest of days. Now, thankfully, the moon is in their own sign. Mars is on their own team. I'm not worried about the Mar or about the moon getting like super harmed here. But there is like this raw, tender, vulnerable, potentially painful or irritating or annoying kind of this whole spectrum, of like difficulty of like aversive feelings. Like, I don't want it. I don't like it. I hate it. Get it away from me. I'm becoming violent. Like that whole spectrum of slight irritation all the way to like outrage, Um, and then also Mars, putting aside on a shelf the notions of conflict, there can just be restlessness. It's energy. So there can be a restlessness, a lot of energy to disperse on the 9th. So if that's the case, again, outlets, exercise, movement, if you can do that, even sometimes like vocally or through writing, all these physical acts that we can do to off gas that martial energy, that might be another good thing to do on the 9th. And then we get a nice little patch of weather starting when the moon gets into Leo at 4 degrees, 32 minutes to 11 degrees, 21 minutes. So 4 degrees to 11 degrees. That's going to be universal time on February 11th from 1:20 in the morning to 1:30 or 1:58 p.m. on the 11th. So pretty much all morning. Then in Central Time, that's going to be the night before on the 10th, 7:20 p.m. Central Time to 7:58 in the morning on the 11th. That's our nice little patch of weather. Some more, what would that be? Monday night in the Western time zones. Morning, I mean, the wee hours, third shift in the morning around Universal Time. And then more on like later half of the day for the global Eastern time zones on the 11th. That's your nice patch of weather, is the second half of the day, afternoon and evening on Tuesday on the 11th if you're in the global Eastern time zones. So that'll be a nice little thing after some kind of intense or important weather. Then we have a Leo full moon. So a little bit of a respite leading into that full moon. So that's nice. This full moon is not seen by either of the malefics. So that already is just, I know Pluto's here, but not having Saturn or Mars lay eyes upon the sun or the moon here, that's a more light, buoyant, stable feeling full moon. So then this full moon becomes one where I'm more interested in using it to share a thing, put something out there, release something into the wild you've been working on. This could be a time of realizations, internal culminations or fruitings, internal peakings that are happening that are, again, not tense or heavy or difficult, but hopefully more light and playful and exciting and hopeful. The moon is going to be seen by Jupiter and Venus. So then we're getting nice interactions with both of the stabilizing, helpful planets. So yeah, like this is raking up some nice points here, some nice invisible space points. The last aspect that the moon is having right before the full moon is a sextile with Jupiter, and that's a visible aspect. It's actually a square with Uranus is the very last thing. So let me get this here. Yeah, it's a nice full moon. Square Uranus, so like yeah, it could be some insights. Usually the moon shining light on something. That is one way to thesaurus the word insight. If I'm like, oh man, I'm saying that word way too much. What's another way I can say insight? It's seeing something. It's seeing it, being aware of it, understanding it, realizing something. Uh, Uranus helps us with all of those. There is like, if there's tension at this full moon, it could be with trying to like be yourself, do your own thing, be expressive and fun and playful and different. And, there's something about that that is just not an easeful process, but it needs to be done anyway. There's so much support in the sky. If you need to do something, express something that is your own, that is unique around February 12th, I'm going to give you the green light. This is like going out of your comfort zone a bit. Uh, in this last chunk here, this last 10 degree of Leo, this is the Martial Decan. Let's see if they're in Mars's bound. No, they're in they're in Mercury's, right? One, two. I'm gonna check. I'm just seeing how spicy they are. I need to know how spicy this full moon is. Mars is still out of bounds. That's irrelevant. And we've got the moon in Mars is bound. Indeed. Okay. So yeah, this is a pretty spicy full moon. So I guess, as long as all of this self-expression, doing your own thing, being your own person, embodying your ways of very thoughtful ways of being. Thinking about that sun and Mercury being like, I have a thesis for exactly why I want to do what I want to do. And then the moon is like, and I want to act that out in the world. It's doing it in a really martial way. So, knowing where, at least to be frank, thinking about Americans who are like the gun fetishist variety who love America and don't tread on me. I don't love this weather. Like it seems very emboldening for that type. So like of course, self-expression, that can come out in skillful ways and unskillful ways. Mars in the third part of Leo is trying to hold on to what it has. It's trying to continue to fight for what it's been fighting for and has succeeded to get. And so this could be a big showing of force, I think, which that sounds kind of scary now that I say it out loud like that. But so I guess if you're out there protesting or anything, or like doing any kind of like civil activism kind of stuff, this is a be careful day on the 12th. People are going to be emboldened. So be emboldened in the name of love. Hate the defilements, hate greed, hate delusion and misunderstanding, hate. Don't hate the people that are being harmed by those states of suffering. It's like people who are misunderstanding, we all have misunderstanding in different parts of our life, right? That is a state of suffering. And it's a tricky one because it's one where people don't always know that it's suffering. They don't realize what that misunderstanding is doing. They don't have the wider view of what that misunderstanding is resulting in and the drawbacks. And if they did see it, they would understand that it is suffering. And so if we can look at it like that, as even if they don't understand that it's harmful, we can look at it like that and hopefully then have more compassion. So hate the defilements, not each other. And if you see other people hating other people around the 12th, you know, take care of yourself, do what you need to do. Um, yeah, that makes me a little okay. So threat level assessment, because we don't have the malefic seeing this, so that helps immensely. We have the benefics here. So I'm going to say threat level yellow. It's not red. It's not the worst one. It's maybe not even the second worst one. But like people could get maybe a little rowdy here. It's Uranus's involvement and it's the decan and bound of the moon. That kind of Uranus Marshall, that subtle Mars that can come out just as being very emboldened and belligerent. Um, that's what we want to, that would be like a less skillful representation of how this could come out. Um, on a positive note, I'll leave us on a positive note. You know, this is a culmination of something that might have begun 6 months ago. This is the culmination or fruiting of something that might have started 2 weeks ago. So looking back at, you know, what's going on right now around the Aquarius new moon that we just had, um, so for me, I'll give myself as an example because this is my first house and my seventh house. I've been trying to embody much more my meditation practice in my regular life, much more than I have been. The last year, my practice has fallen off a cliff. I was really good for a few years. I had a really strong practice, and as it happens, it's going to go up and down. I've been in a bit of a slump, so I've been trying to get it back on board. What I've been realizing is that it's impossible for me to do that without it affecting my partner. Like he's gonna get brought into this whether or not he likes it. And I just have to continue to embody that, you know, and do my thing. And so the moon being in the seventh year for me, full moon, shining the light, having this culmination. Maybe over the last 2 weeks, maybe I'm seeing some fruit for my labor. Maybe it's easier for me to sit down. Maybe it's easier for me to embody over my last 2 weeks of effort, or maybe my last 6 months of effort. So it doesn't have to be scary stuff, but look for like anything that's unfurling and coming into view around the 12th. Overall, it looks, God, I started off really positive with it. Like I want to believe this is a very positive, cool full moon. I have a couple caveats there though. So just mostly cool. Keep your head on a swivel. Okay. So we've got then Mercury going into Pisces on the 14th, so that'll be my next little digression. Before I do, let's check on the chat and see if anyone has any questions. Thanks, y'all. I try to be good at keeping up with it on here, but I'm not as good as I am on my office hour. I'm much better at keeping up with things. Hello, Zama. Hello, Star Surfers. Hello, Cindy. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Heather. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Zama. Don't forget to like the stream. Thank you, Coconut Water. I appreciate you. Cardinal babies have entered the chat. Uh, yeah, someday we'll have all the planets direct. Yeah, future tripping, V real. It is poison. I'm gonna be frank. Like when we do astrology, this is like a very powerful tool that I don't think we give credit for how powerful it is and how much it can scramble our brains if we don't remember where we are right now. Yeah, it's like people who talk about how, God, who was this? It wasn't me that was like, you know, ushering in this thought, but the idea of like the black mirror and a black mirror being like this thing you can look into and like see anything really. And like our phones, like our pocket phones, our pocket computers all being black mirrors that we can like look into and see anything and how big of a deal that is. And we all just like, are casually like just going about it. I feel like astrology is just another one of those. Like, man, it's so yeah, future tripping is real. Got to remember to only like the best way to use this information is to, with birth chart, I usually give my caveats with rising sign horoscopes of like, here's what best way to use this information. Know your rising sign, know, your perfection time lords for the year, know what planets are allowed or not for that year. When it comes to transits, so like what's happening around our birth chart at any given time, uh, only going into the future as long as it takes for us to plan and then coming back. So intentionally, not just like because our automatic thoughts, our automatic thinking, that this lens of astrology that we pick up. And I notice my brain all the time picking up just automatically the lens of astrology and thinking about what I'm seeing through that lens. That's not the same as like intentional thought and sitting down and saying, I'm going to think about what I need to do to make this project come to life. Like, what steps do I need to do to make my research happen, for instance, or to make a cup of coffee. It's a very stepwise thing. But using astrology to do that planning, yes. I mean, geez, what a great tool that we have, and why would we not use it for that? But only hanging out so long as we can use it to plan. So for saying, I need to have a tax appointment. When is a good time for me to do that? Looking at the astrology, figuring out when a good time is to do that, scheduling the appointment, and then not stewing over, oh shoot, keep looking at the weather. I'm going to keep looking and seeing like, what could it be? What could it be? You can do that, but know that you are dipping into a pool that is hard on the brain. So come back to the present, use it only as much as you need to plan. And I think same goes for the past. Where it's similar to going to like a therapist to deal with your past or whatever, you sit down intentionally with that person in a container for an hour or so, talking, figuring out, moving through, understanding, integrating past. Same with astrology, use astrology to go into the past, to understand things better, to be able to move on, to be able to heal. Don't hang out there longer than you need to. Just like waiting around in it, past tripping, future tripping, past tripping. It's all just a means to not be here right now with what is here right now, which is actually kind of difficult sometimes, which is why we future trip and past trip. Okay, lecture time is over. That was an impromptu lecture. I didn't mean it, but I totally meant it. Y'all are so sweet. Oh, I cannot check personal stuff. I'm sorry, everyone. We'd be here all day forever. And also it's like your cosmic underwear drawer. Very personal. Okay, so let's talk about Mercury. Speaking of digressions, speaking of these things, we're gonna have Mercury on the 14th entering into Pisces. But it's not just any old Mercury in Pisces. It's a Mercury in Pisces that's ruled by a Jupiter in Gemini. So we've got ourselves a mutual reception here where two, and an interesting one, where two planets that they're in places they usually wouldn't choose to be. Jupiter is far away from their Sagittarius home. Mercury is far away from their Virgo home. And so they're being forced to do their jobs unsupported, under-supported, and, using tools they wouldn't generally use. So they're kind of at a disadvantage in that way. But this exchange of signs means that they can help each other. It's like they've got each other on speed dial and they're able to help each other out really helpfully quickly. And so they start to function a bit better than they would on their own. So most years when Mercury is in Pisces, I'm gonna, warn against difficulties with mercurial things, difficulty with travel, communication, buying, selling, exchange. Here, I don't think it's going to be as bad as usual. Now, they are under the beams of the sun, so they're in a rough shape there. They're on their way to Saturn. Like in general, like Mercury's not in good shape. This is one little mitigation though. that there's this mutual reception. So amongst like the list of five things that are going wrong right now for Mercury or in February, one of the things that's going right is this mutual reception. So it's not totally lost. That does help. One thing Mercury in Pisces, I continually find them being good at is explaining something or sharing information with people in a way that is really unique or not. It's not just plain writing. It's not just a manual. It's like a visual aid with the manual or some other means of expressing something to people in a way that they'll understand and not in the usual way. So taking liberties. So using a poem or an illustration or a parable or anything. So if you are someone who has this natally, there are some special skills and talents I tend to see them have, even if like, say doing a stereotypical form or numbers or something like that is more difficult, or maybe you just like don't like it. That can be Mercury and Pisces, like some of that, more Virgo and like put everything in the right box, put everything in the right exact place. That can be harder in Pisces. Not that they can't do it, or they can do it, but they're just not that interested in doing it. They might be, more interested in finding different ways to work with information. So, all to say, it's not totally doomed. Use Mercury, use your voice for beauty, art, spirituality, creativity. Um, be imaginative in your planning. This is where we get that ideal version, like the best version it could be. And then we can shoot for that and plan the best we can to get the way on the way there. So it doesn't have to be totally delusional. I think that's more Neptune and Rahu. They are delusional and they are in here as well. But Pisces on its own is not delusional. They just have a different way of understanding and going about information. It's very different than Mercury's rational, logical, if this, then that, more Virgo and algorithmic thing. In Pisces, it's like it doesn't matter the journalistic excellence of things. It doesn't have to be exactly the perfect, facts. It's more like the parable of the Good Samaritan. It doesn't matter who they were, the state they were in. No, it doesn't matter what year it happened. What mattered is the point of the story, the understanding that it's good to help people or whatever. There's a truth. It's not delusional, but it took me like 2 seconds to tell you that and get a huge truth across to you versus the 18 hours it would take me to write you a research report on something. It's just more Virgo-y. So all to say, not doomed. Final answer. Uh, Vibe shift though on the 14th. If you have to work harder the second half of February to communicate, to make things make sense, to do the material world Mercury drudgery, yeah, it might be harder the second half of the month. Um, let's see. Yeah, as long as we're not getting ruminaty, Mercury and Pisces can get lost and there's no boundaries around, certain thoughts or thinking. So, yeah, making sure we're not getting too ruminaty in February. And then we have another benefic enclosure. I didn't do every single lunar benefic malefic enclosure. Um, I only picked the big ones because there were several that were like really short, like 2 hours, 3 hours. Like, I don't care. It'll be over before I'll take a nap and it'll be over. Um, but the longer ones I did put in here. So on this 15th, it kicks off the moon in Libra. And they're going to be between Venus and Jupiter's rays. And that's going to be Central Time on the 15th in the evening, 8:19 p.m. until the next morning, 4:51 in the morning. That's Central Time. Universal Time, the nice little patch of weather, is going to be 2:19 in the morning until 10:51 in the morning. And then the more global east you go, it's going to be more in your afternoon. So for like Eastern Europe, uh, Asia's like afternoon into the evening, and it ends. Carriage turns back into a pumpkin at 9:51 p.m. on the 16th for Eastern Australia time. So effectively the end of the 15th, most of the day 16th, uh, for most of us. That'll be the nice patch of weather. And then we've got the sun entering into Pisces on the 18th. So we're going to start Pisces season. And the sun is going to start shining light on what has been a lot of thinking, a lot of trying to rationalize and logic our way in a place that is difficult to do that. Um, the sun is going to be joining the chat on the 18th. And really all of the air stuff, most of it's done now. So right now, just again, just to compare to now, I mean, we've got a lot of air happening. There's a lot of thinking in a very like rational, linear way. There's not a lot of wiggle room in Aquarius. It's like it's got to kind of fall into this system for things to be accepted here. And in Pisces, we go more on feeling. It's more like on vibes. We're going on vibes. I cannot write you a thesis, Aquarius, about it. But Pisces, they just feel it. It just makes sense, you know? So if you're just like in January, if you're trying to like wrap your brain around something and it feels like just this tangle of thoughts that's just like feels heavy and like difficult to operate around, I wonder if maybe this, even though like, you know, again, with maybe forms and like buying and selling, yeah, like the package will go to the wrong place or it'll be like the wrong size and you have to send it back. But the nice thing, I think, is getting out of this Aquarius air, like rational thinking space and getting more into the intuition, the vibes. It's much more Hakuna Matata chill in here. Like, does it really matter in the final outcome if this one thing is off? You know, that's what Pisces is about. They're like, probably doesn't matter in the final outcome. So it might be a rest. It might be kind of a break for some of us who are more get lost in those thought worlds. I know in some ways we can be kind of ruminaty, you know, like I was saying with Mercury and Pisces, but at the same time, we're getting out of this like strict air place, which itself can be kind of a mental prison after a while. Um, so I don't know, Sun getting it's that last planet getting out of that really highly thinking, analyzing, very hyper analyzing area and getting into just the felt sense of things. And, you know, maybe for whatever's going on in your life in February, that'll be more helpful at the second half. So just know that there's a big vibe shift halfway through on the 18th. Then Mercury is going to follow them in there on the 22nd. Or I'm sorry, that's a lie. Mercury's in their own bound on the 22nd. That's what it was. So Sun moves in there. Mercury's been in there. And then I know that I was saying how like now like the 28th of January to February 1st is a nice little Mercury window and then 8th, 9th, 10th. Now this is another one where Mercury's going to be having a little loophole. The 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th of February. 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Mercury's going to be in their own bound. So you might have extra luck or good times with communicating, travel, planning, thinking, et cetera, Mercury things, scheduling on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Shoot, that's when I just scheduled my tax appointment for the 20th. I didn't even look at the astrology at all. I just scheduled it. I was like, I have to get it done. I should have pushed it off a couple days. It's okay. Actually, that's over the weekend. I couldn't have anyway. See, elections in action. Yeah, I would have had to do it. Yeah, no, it's over the weekend. Anyway, there's a little window for Mercury there, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And then on the 23rd, we have another big day. So two things happen on the 23rd of February. Mercury or Mars is going to station direct. Huzzah. But then also Saturn is going to be getting 15 degrees within 15 degrees of the sun. So the sun is moving along. We can watch the sun move along here and get closer and closer to Saturn. And eventually the sun is going to move through Saturn and block Saturn from our view in the sky. So they'll be having their conjunction in March, but just starting on the 23rd of February. That's about, depending on your location, the weather, things like that, it might be a few days shy, but Saturn is going to go under the beams. And so then Saturn things, so for this theoretical Cancer rising, matters of partnership and sharing of assets might get quieter for a few weeks. Those structures might be broken down and reborn a bit. How those things are perceived, how those topics of life are simply just perceived by you or held by you personally might change over the course of like the last week of February into March. So it's like Saturn is moving through those purifying flames of the sun and having a rebirth. And so likewise, the Capricorn and Aquarius parts of our chart are also going to go through a rebirth end of February into March. So that's one of the consequences of Saturn going through the beams. That process is starting on the 23rd. We also might have to work harder end of February into March with maintaining boundaries, saying no, because if our planet of no disappears from the sky, then maybe my ability to say no is likewise going to be quieter, which maybe in certain situations is not good. So if you are noticing some things going on, whatever, where it's hard to say no, end of February into March, just make sure that you're being strong and remembering Saturn, self-respect, boundaries, limitations. I need to sleep 8 hours a night. So no, I'm not going to take on that next thing. Right now we're also having Saturn slowly increasing with the head of the dragon meeting up with Saturn. And that's just one more thing where it's like, we're going to have more responsibility. Let's be careful about what we say yes to. Let's be extra sure we're saying no to stuff over the next few weeks in such a way so that we're not getting overextended. Mars is stationing direct. Finally. It's always like that. Every time Mars is retrograde, by the time they station direct, we are very happy for that to happen. Now, again, if you were a Mars retrograde baby, if you have Mars retrograde in your birth chart, you might have been fine this whole time. This isn't for you. For the rest of us, we're like, thank God, it's better. Now, again, we need to wait till Mars starts to speed up. That's going to take a little bit of time. So, I mean, most of February, like Mars is slowing down. Like right now, Mars is at 21 degrees. They're only moving in the next 3 weeks. They're only really moving like 3 degrees, and then they're just gonna camp out at 7 degrees or 17 degrees for quite a while. Yeah, they're not even out of that degree until March. Yeah, like second week of March. Um, so now if you've had Mars struggles like inflammation, injuries, if your motion, your physical motion has been delayed or stymied or challenged, hopefully by the end of February into March, we're going to start to see like a ship making a big wide turn. We're going to see Mars slowly start to go in a different direction. If battling and war has slowed down a bit, there's been a recent, very happy to hear, a ceasefire. Um, I don't want to naysay, but I always worry when Mars is about to station direct, because then that can be an increase in fighting, an increase in Mars. So, especially at the end of February, if you are, and even locally in your own space, when Mars is really loud, when Mars is stationing, it's like that very loud Mars presence. Be careful out there last week of February, even like February 20th, a few days before, week before February 23rd. keep your head on a swivel, be extra careful if you're out there doing things, dealing with conflict, confronting things. All of that is very martial. So just keep yourself safe because they're going to be extra loud and potentially violence also louder end of February into March as Mars is stationing. Uh, yeah, and note too. So we can put all those topics of Mars, energy, motivation, um, conflict, actions. We can put all that on a shelf and then know that Mars is also simply signifying the house life topics that it rules. So for this theoretical Cancer rising, this would be their career, their 10th house, their public life, their life paths. In the 5th house, creativity, sex, children, fun, 5th house stuff. As Mars stations direct, as they're stationing, those topics might be loud. You know, your career might be really busy. Maybe you're having a lot of fun too. Maybe your romantic life is really loud at this point around February 23rd. Uh, know that also those topics, as Mars starts to move forward, are going to start to move forward as well. So if things with career have been being reconsidered, slowed down, delayed, now in March and April, we should start to see a lot more movement and a lot more progress in like a direction you want to go in. Same thing for dating. If dating or romance has been up in the air or you're reconsidering things, you should have a much better idea increasingly in March about the direction those things are going. So then knowing too, since December 6th, Mars stationed retrograde on December 6th, really since beginning of December, these topics of Aries and Scorpio, like moving forward has not been the thing. It has been more a time to reconsider. It's not a time to make the sweeping decisions. It's a time to reconsider what I would like to decide, usually. Now, it can be doing decisions if you were doing decisions that were very different than what you usually do. Sometimes retrogrades are doing things differently. So now that period of time is also coming to a close. So any experiments you've been running since December, doing things differently since December, your focus or energy has been on a different thing the last few months. Now, end of February, it kind of starts to go back to where it was, or back to some stuff that it was focused on in September, October, November. Mars station and direct. I'm ready for it. Now, Mars will be out of Cancer on April 17th. So still a little more time of Mars in Cancer. And then on the 1st of May, Mars is leaving their post-retrograde time, meaning that they have reached 6 degrees of Leo and they've retraced all of those degrees again. So these Mars stories, even though we are stationing direct on the 23rd, really we still need all of March, all of April to see all of this Mars stuff kind of shake out. And I do expect, you know, with retrograde being inconsistent, now February 23rd and onward, more consistency with Mars. So more consistency with energy, motivation, action, less inconsistency. That's what I'm looking forward to mostly. Um, all right. I think that's my Mars talk. What else do we need to talk about? We're getting to the end here. We're going to talk about the Pisces new moon, the Mercury story, and that'll be it. And then man, March is packed. March is so busy. There's so much going on in March. Yeah. Oh, hello, Kai. Welcome. Alrighty, let's talk about this Pisces new moon. And that'll be the 27th at 9 degrees of Pisces. So the Saturnian decan, a Venusian bound. So I know Venus can't see this lunation. Venus is not here for it. We are in Venus's exalted territory though. And the ninth 9 degrees is in the Venus bound of Pisces. So this new moon, if you are regrouping or wrapping up, beginning anew, any art projects, February 27th, perfect. Good time to regroup around arts, begin things with arts. Also, spirituality. Great time for beautifying, cleaning anything, but especially your altars, your relational spaces, your workspaces that have to do with people or spirit or art. Um, yeah, I love new moons for regrouping. I love new moons for cleaning. And then we have Jupiter being able to see it. So the person, the planet who's in charge of this new moon can lay eyes upon it. Let's see, the last aspect before this was Uranus and then a trine with Jupiter. And then the next aspect is a square with Jupiter. So we've been having, let me just double check myself, but there's been some nice Jupiter. Yeah, that was one of the last aspects. Then, oh, I forgot to mention. Shoot, now I'm kind of jumping around. Sorry, y'all. I was just checking. I forgot to mention the next aspect with this last full moon, the culmination is Mercury. So, yeah, not Jupiter. It's not a bad planet. It's not Mars or Saturn. So, yeah, that's just all to say. I'm not worried about that full moon. Threat assessment pretty low, although it looks a little bit tense and crunchy, but constructive. It does feel like going out of your comfort zone. But then this next one is very Jupiter. So like this next new moon, I mean, however things turn out, I think we're sitting in an okay place by the end of the month. Lunation wise, Saturn and Jupiter being here, it's very world buildy or world kind of I'm deconstructing this in order to build something better, or I'm taking out this one component and I'm, improving, optimizing. Whenever I get Saturn and Jupiter together, there's sometimes a lot of that going on. What else did I say about this? Yeah, Jupiter's direct too, which is nice. So it's like new moon and the person in charge of it is direct Jupiter. Uh, oh yeah, it's near Fomalhaut. Fomalhaut, who is a fixed star that's in early Pisces. So, I mean, very creative spiritual potential with this new moon. Yeah, nothing I'm seeing that's super concerning. The last aspect that the moon made was actually in Aquarius. It had a square. So, I mean, it looks like maybe right before this new moon, there could have been, something unexpected, but a solution around it. So there might be something coming in that we have to deal with that might not be expected, but it's like we're in the position to respond to it very well. So, um, then the final or like after the new moon, the next aspect is going to be Jupiter. So it's like in order to meet that abundance or in order to continue along, have success, keep things favorable, there is some adjustment that's needed. So whatever this new moon is, it looks fine, but it might require some changes, some adjustments in whatever we are starting, regrouping around. Um, but overall, it looks relatively positive. It is having, this whole conversation with Jupiter, which is a much more positive planet, even though Saturn is right here. There's still this voice of optimism. Yes, this is real. Yes, there are delays. Yes, there are these long-standing challenges, but there are things to solve those and remedy those. Um, yeah, a nice few lunations here. I mean, Uranus is involved, so it's like responding to change, responding to things we didn't expect, but there's like this ability to respond. So I'm really, I don't know, I'm gonna look at them as plot points. I'm honestly like all of my concerns are collective. For individually, I think a lot of this is going to be manageable, but it's seeing the Uranus stuff collectively and knowing again, like I'm being so America centric, but it's really hard for me not to right now, given the current state of affairs. Um, I'm just thinking about like, yeah, what Uranian kind of wrench are we going to be trying to respond to today? It's every day, but yeah, we'll see on these full moon, new moon. This will be plot points along those stories. I think that's all I have. Nope, that's not all I have. Okay, one more thing. So Mercury at the end of the month, so end of January, right now, Venus is entering their pre-retrograde stuff. At the end of February, Mercury is entering their pre-retrograde stuff. So on February 28th, Mercury is entering their pre-retrograde shadow. And that is just meaning that they are going to get to the place where eventually, like they're going to go retrograde and come back here. And then they'll have to retrace all these steps again. But this is where we're going to start watching those Mercury stories that are later going to happen more in Aries. So start watching already now, but then again, continue to watch at the end of February. What's going on in Pisces and Aries? Clock for yourself what topics that is. So for this theoretical Virgo rising, it would be their partners and their sharing of resources. What's getting ready to be reconsidered or shuffled around here for you in March? We're going to start that story on the 28th. And just to give you the dates there, Mercury doesn't station until mid-March, March 15th. And then we have, wrapping up the month, a lunar malefic enclosure. This is especially for night babies. So if you were born with the sun below the horizon, we've got um, the moon being from 17 Pisces to 20 Pisces. So it's only 5 hours. And a lot of the lunar malefic enclosures this month, where the moon is between the more tense, intense rays of the malefics, they were really short, or it was trines and sextiles where it tends to be not as difficult. So I didn't mention those because if anything, like when the moon is between the malefics, sometimes it can just be really, I use the word galvanizing a lot, where it can kind of harden us to move through something that's difficult, or it can be us doing something that requires intensity or hard work. Especially when it's like trines and sextiles, it's more of like this constructive manifestation of some of that intensity. So not a lot of red flags there. But there is a little one at the end of the month here, February 28th. And time-wise, that is going to be universal time. What is that? 12:57 p.m. until, what is that? Yeah, I'm like tripping out here. Um, I must have put that in wrong. I don't believe it. Central time. I'm gonna go Central time on the 28th. It's about 7 in the morning to about 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's the morning Central time. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it starts Universal Time, 12:57 p.m. and goes until 6:41 p.m. So it's afternoon, evening-ish. What day is that? That's a Friday. So if you're in like corporate America or corporate Europe or corporate wherever, um, yeah, I guess corporate Africa, corporate Europe, that those time zones, that's not when you do the meeting. Don't do the meeting on the 28th in the afternoon. Do not do the meeting in the evening either. The moon is running into Saturn, and I don't want people to say no to you. Unless you want to say no to someone, if that's your meeting, maybe then have the meeting. But the main thing here is that Saturn is going to be the one of the main things. It's like moving away from a trine with Mars. So like Mars is like, you know, sending some soft separation energy, but then also, let me get it correct here. The moon is applying to Saturn, and Saturn is the lord of rejection. So I don't love it. So on the 28th, leave work early that day. Just go home if you can. Oh, and then on the 28th, the bad patch of weather. Australian time, Eastern Australian time or Japanese Standard Time, 11:57 p.m. This is like third shift until 5:41 in the morning on the next day. Yeah, the first. So that'll be really late if you're over there. Meeting time will be over. Okay, that's what I have. Yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, book if you like how I talk about stuff, and let me see if there's any final things or any final times you wish I would have went over, any final dates that you wish I would have mentioned. We can talk about them. Hello, Dux Noctis. Thanks for joining us. Oh, I hope your chores went great. I love listening to stuff and doing chores. It's one of my favorites. Um, okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope everyone has a great month of February. It's really like the lead up. It feels so much like the lead up to things. I would say, it's a good time to get a clock to get a read on, especially at the Aries and Pisces parts of our chart. What is going on around there? We're going to have a Pisces new moon there as well this month. So I think it's going to be really important to get in touch with what those life topics are for each of us based on your rising sign, because that's where most of the weather is going to be happening over the next month or so. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. You can also email me, aligninlightastro@gmail.com. And then I do have a sliding scale. So if discount code is not enough, still too expensive, I don't want that to get in the way for people, you can always email me, aligninlightastro@gmail.com, and we can just set it up through email. And then it's on my website too. I describe my my sliding scale rate, uh, amount of money per time, and it's much lower than the regular. So and every once in a while I'll do a pro bono thing too. So don't be afraid to ask. And I usually I don't ask any questions. I just believe you. So you can just email me, no big deal. And then yeah, I really got nothing going on. It's very peaceful here. I love it. I'm living the dream. I'm just doing readings. And I'm trying to get my research done. I think I finally figured it out because I was trying, it was about the moon under bond, which is a really specific kind of technique that, I mean, honestly, it's looking at a pretty basic thing though. And it's looking at the last and next aspect of the moon, which is part of why I'm always looking at the last and next aspect of the moon. But that's really what it's about, even though it's like this very specifically delineated kind of technique that they use to look in certain circumstances. What's underneath it is just very basic. And I think that's what I'm going to focus on for my research. I think that's what I need to do. I think I've cut through the Gordian knot that has been my head trying to wrap around. Like, I feel like I found stuff, but at the same time, I didn't find anything, which happens. That's also part of research, is not finding anything interesting, which itself is an answer. So I think it might not be the sexiest report. Yeah, that's really the only thing that's going on. I've been coloring a lot. I've been trying to get back to I'm trying to practice what I preach. I give people a lot of fifth house homework where if people are having a hard time connecting with their creativity, their rest, their sense of play, and granted, it does require safety. If you're not safe or you don't feel safe, it's hard to do this. But as children, we have all this time built in to like play and create and have fun. And as adults, we really don't, we have to like carve it out. So I've been carving out more time to do those creativity, or just like, even if it's not just things that are creative, it's just things that I'm doing for the fun of it, like for no reason at all. Like not to be good or to develop a skill or make money, like just to literally just do the act of creativity, let it out of me. So I've been doing a lot more of that lately too, which has been nice. I recommend it. All right, I'm rambling. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the month. Till next time. Oh, what is next time? That's what I forgot. I'm doing a Q&A. My next Q&A is next week. No, it's in 2 weeks on the 13th of February at 7 p.m. Central Time. And yeah, that'll be the next time that I am here. So same place, same channel, Thursday, second Thursday of the month, 7 p.m. I always have my Q&A. So that's where I'll see you next. All right, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.